this has to do with Tucker Carlson's broadcast, I think, of December 15th. And this referenced the JFK question. And the reason I'm bringing it up, is because of its relationship to what you've talked about the expanded military industrial complex called the Mickey Matt, etc. So this is just going to excerpt a bit of what he had to say and get right to the point here. But he stated, among other things, in what was a 30-minute discussion. In 1976, long forgotten, the House of Representatives of the U.S. Congress impaneled a special committee to reinvestigate the JFK assassination. Their bipartisan conclusion: Jack Kennedy was almost certainly murdered as a result of a conspiracy, but the question is, a conspiracy by whom? Well, the obvious subject would be the CIA. And he went on and said some things. Then he talked about how the documents from the President John F. Kennedy Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992 had mandated the full disclosure of all documents by 2017, and that Mike Pompeo, then the director of the CIA, withheld those documents, and that the same thing actually happened again 2 days ago when the Biden administration also withheld documents. So he then went on to say this, quote, "We spoke to someone who had access to these still hidden CIA documents, a person who was deeply familiar with what they contain. We asked this person directly, did the CIA have a hand in the murder of John F. Kennedy, an American president? And here's the reply we received verbatim, quote, the answer is yes. I believe they were involved. It's a whole different country from what we thought it was. It's all fake," end quote. So now Tucker Carlson did not name that source. He said, "This is not a, quote, conspiracy theorist, unquote, we spoke to, not even close. This is someone with direct knowledge of the information that once again is being withheld from the American public." And it continued in that vein. Then he got coming down to the end. He talked about the fact that many people have known this for a long time. The people that knew would include every director of the CIA since November of 1963. And that list would include Obama's director of CIA, John Brennan, one of the most sinister and dishonest figures in American life. That list would also include, we are sad to say, our friend Mike Pompeo, his friend Mike Pompeo, who ran the CIA in the last administration. Mike Pompeo knew this. We asked Pompeo to join us tonight, and although he rarely turns down televised interviews, he refused to come. So, Ray, the question is, given the fact that you were a CIA analyst for 27 years, and you also returned various commendations that you got as a result of your differences and clear opposition to what happened, particularly in Iraq in 2003, what is your view of what was said by Tucker Carlson? What is your view about this issue, and what is your view about its relationship to the problem of a honest executive in today, and the inability to apparently get to the truth of things?
Let me begin by quoting Senator Schumer, who should have lost to Diane Sare, but won. Senator from New York. After Donald Trump won the presidency in 2016, the very first week of January, he arranged to get himself on Maddow's show. And Maddow said, "No, Senator Schumer, you have something to say about the CIA and how Trump is criticizing the CIA and taking off after them. And what do you say?" And Schumer said, and I quote, "He's being very, very foolish. You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you." You know, I thought that Trump was a pretty smart businessman. Maybe he is, but he's being very, very foolish to take on intelligence. Period. End quote. Well, Schumer was telling us what the situation is. Now, the best book about this is something called JFK and the Unspeakable, written by James Douglas, happens to be a friend of mine. He poured over all the foregoing books, this is about 12 years ago now, put them all together and said, yeah, JFK was done in by the deep state, CIA, the parts of the Army, parts of the FBI knew about it, parts of the Secret Service. Yeah, he was done in. Why? Well, because after the Cuban Missile Crisis, which relates to the kind of situation we face now, after the Cuban Missile Crisis, when JFK realized how close we had come to blowing up the world, right? He worked out a deal with Nikita Khrushchev, started a test ban treaty, started all kinds of negotiations toward rapprochement. With whom? With the commies. With the commies. Now you had to have been alive. I was serving in CIA under John Kennedy for several months, okay? But you had to be aware of the atmosphere there, where Kennedy was hated because he gave in to, because he didn't support the invasion of Cuba, the Bay of Pigs invasion. He told those CIA types, look, this sounds like a cockamamie operation to me, but if Eisenhower approved it, go ahead. But look, we're not going to commit the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Army, U.S. Armed Forces to rescue you if it screws up. It screwed up royally, and Kennedy held tough, okay? Now, how do we know that he was deceived in kind of when they pursued it? We have Alan Dulles' coffee-stained notes from his desk saying that Kennedy said we would not commit U.S. forces, but when push comes to shove, he will not be able to avoid committing U.S. forces, okay? So what happened? Kennedy stayed true to his pledge not to commit U.S. forces. The whole thing frizzled out. And Kennedy was heard to say to a neighbor up there in Hyannisport, you know, I'd like to take the CIA and scatter it into 1,000 pieces. Whoa, okay. That's sort of a declaration of war, right? So Kennedy and Alan Dulles didn't get along very well at all, and it took him several months, Kennedy, to fire Alan Dulles. Now, you don't fire a well-connected patrician like Alan Dulles, whose brother is a Secretary of State, and who has all kinds of, well, let's put it this way, 7 ways to Sunday to get back at you without paying the price. So it was the substantive issue of John Kennedy trying to figure out how to live with the Russians in a more decent, peaceful way, and the fact that he could not be trusted to support fully the cockamamie schemes of the CIA that did him in. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. Read Douglas's book, okay? JFK and the Unspeakable. It's a quote from Thomas Burton, of all people. Today, what happened when under Trump's watch, he's still not really being wise to the ways of Washington, got up on the day that the congressional mandate said he has to release the rest of the JFK documents hidden by the CIA and the FBI. He got up in the morning without telling anybody. He said, today is the day Congress said I have to release those documents. I'm going to release them. 4 hours later, in the middle of the afternoon, he got up and he said, oh, I changed my mind. I'm not going to release them. The CIA and the FBI said, no, it's too sensitive. We'll revisit it in 6 months. That's what he said. He said the CIA and the FBI said, no, we can't really. It doesn't matter what Congress said, right? Okay, 6 months. So McGovern makes a little note in his notebook, and 6 months later he asks around, fell through the cracks. Nobody remembered that they're going to revisit in 6 months. So, I mean, hello, do you have to be a master psychiatrist or psychologist to figure out, well, maybe if they don't want those things released, maybe it's because it shows that they were involved? Now, last thing I'll say here is that when, after the Kennedy assassination, all kinds of irregular things happened, okay? The Warren Commission was set up by Lyndon Johnson. Who did they pick to pretty much orchestrate the whole commission proceedings? Oh, it was a fellow named Dulles. Yeah, Allen Dulles. Okay? Allen Dulles pretty much orchestrated that whole thing. Did LBJ know about all this? James Douglas tells me, yeah, the evidence is pretty clear that Johnson may not have been involved in the actual assassination, but he knew what the plans were. He was not agnostic on that. So he appoints Earl Warren, and Earl Warren appoints Allen Dulles. Now, what's my point here? When people said, honest people, people like me, well, wait a second, this doesn't parse. There is some suspicion that the CIA might have been involved in the assassination. And now you're pointing the previous CIA. Come on. And guess what we got? Guess what we got? Conspiracy theorists. You guys are conspiracy theorists. Conspiracy theorists. And that's where the term got its impetus. And to the very day today, when you say the truth often, and when you stop saying the truth, you're considered a conspiracy theorist. Now, I just finished by saying both parties are equally corrupt on all this. Both parties are equally afraid of the deep state. And you don't have to just listen to Chuck Schumer to talk about they've got 6 ways to Sunday to get back at you. Talk to the senators that knew that there were no weapons of mass destruction, but couldn't say it because it was classified. Talk to the senators that know all about Afghanistan. So again, we come back to the senators and the representatives that are getting the take from the military, industrial, congressional, intelligence, media, academia, think tank complex, the Mickey Mat, putting it in their pockets, appropriating more money for arms building, selling more money, taking that money, a share of it, putting it in their pockets, getting reelected, appropriating. Hello, is this a great country or what? That's what it takes. Everybody's afraid. And everybody's on the take. Now, they tried to prevent, that is, the Democrats tried to prevent Trump from winning the election in 2016. I mean, it's documented now. Obama in October. Hillary Clinton, also in October of 2016, authorized all this Russiagate stuff. We know about it. It's in court testimony, okay? Not many people know about it, but it's in court testimony, right? Then what happened in 2020? My goodness. All of a sudden, Tucker Biden's computer comes out, and what does the deep state do? They hire 51 former senior intelligence agents to say, Russian operation. We can't prove it, but it got all the earmarks of a Russian operation. What am I saying here? I'm saying that the media and the deep state are joined at the hip now as never before, and both elections, well, at least the following election, was probably affected by the fact that no one could tell the truth. Twitter wouldn't allow it. No one could tell the truth. Only Glenn Greenwald will speak out about it, tell the truth about Biden's laptop and how Joe Biden himself was on the take, okay? Now, this 2016 thing, they failed to derail Trump, but they sure got him for the 4 years after that. He couldn't do a damn thing that he wanted to do in terms of creating a more decent relationship with Russia. So it's a sad story. Is the deep state strong? It sure as hell is. And is it still around? Of course it is. John Brennan, mentioned before. Oh, he's a big commentator on what? I guess it's MSNBC. Clapper is on CNN. I mean, it used to be that the agency controlled the media. Now the agency is the media. And saddest of all, Americans don't understand that. Americans don't appreciate that. And what we need to do is fight our way into the public consciousness. And we have to find more imaginative ways of doing that. And I think we're up to it. It's just that we have to work harder. Thanks.